welcome to Weekly Wisdom. Today we're going to talk to you about coping with anger. This is an emotion that we all experience, and sometimes when people come to us, they are looking forward to a day when that emotion never shows up again and they can go on with their merry life and everything is good. I'm here to break it to you that you're going to experience anger probably until you die. It's just that the way you cope with it may be different. So, what is anger? Anger, because we all experience it, and I think based upon who you are, your experiences, your temperament, anger can be something that can be like a learned behavior. The way we engage it can be something that we learn from our families of origin. Like, for example, if you are raised in a home where you just scream at each other when you get angry, in your adulthood, you're going to be finding yourself doing the same thing, not knowing that there's a better way because that's all you know. So a lot of times when we are trying to get rid of it, it's sometimes it's in reaction in ways where we saw how other people responded to it and we didn't like it and we just want to find a better way to deal with it. Some people just want to get rid of the anger, the whole emotion itself, thinking that that's something that they can attain. Hopefully, no one can attain that, but you just have to learn how to deal with it. But anyway, anger is an emotion that we experience when we feel like our boundaries are being violated. When people overstep us and we feel like we are being disregarded, we are disrespected, we are not honored, our values are being disregarded in any way. This is an emotion that comes and nudges us and tells us, you know what, this is not okay. When you feel like someone has overstepped the limit, that's when you feel like you gotta do something about it. So anger is your friend that kind of tells you what happened. And so when we get angry, we really have to understand what that emotion is trying to communicate to us. Because I tell people emotions are like messengers. I think of it like when you're driving a car, right? And your dashboard kind of tells you that this is what's going on inside of your hood. There is you need to check your tires, you need to check your engine or any other thing. And so if you start to interpret your emotions like that, you're gonna find like there is a healthy way to interact with them as opposed to just thinking that it shouldn't be that way. Because I think we put so much effort in trying to get rid of anger instead of actually listening to why anger is there in the first place. Now, what are some of the things that people experience when they get angry? There are so many things that we go through. I personally, when I get upset, one of the things that there are two things that I notice that I do when I'm upset. I find myself talking about it over and over and over again. But before I knew that that is what was happening, it's just that I would just talk about it and talk about it and talk about it, hoping that I didn't even know I was hoping for anything, but I would just talk. But I realized that I was just trying to be understood or trying to find someone to know what is happening to me so that I can engage it in a healthy way. But now that I know that if I talk about it, because you know how sometimes you feel angry, but you don't connect to the emotion directly because you're so not engaging it in a healthy way. And maybe some of you are experiencing that you're manifesting anger but you're not connected to it in the right way. So I'm here to kind of discuss some of those areas. So when people do get upset, sometimes it is based upon how they were raised, the family of origin that they grew up in. Although it's sometimes they feel like your anger explodes and it comes out of nowhere, a lot of times it's not the case, because anger tends to build up slowly and slowly. And especially if you're not paying attention to it like I used to, it can happen entirely outside of your awareness. So you can think of a time when your anger caught you by surprise. You're gonna find that not that many times anger was a surprise. It was building up. You are just not aware that that is something that was happening. Now, some people tend to describe anger as like a secondary emotion, meaning that it is a response to a primary emotion such as hurt, fear, or sadness. Now, we see this a lot of times in couple relationships. When a person doesn't feel connected to their loved one, they tend to get angry about that disconnect, but they don't think that they're angry, they just react in that emotion. So, what you see on the surface is like the person is raising their voice. or the person is withdrawing themselves, or the person is explaining themselves over and over and over again out of that frustration of not being heard. But when underneath that behavior is like, I just need you to understand me. I just need you to remind me that you care about me. I just need you to tell me that you still love me. You're still in love with me. Because when I don't know that, I get angry and I tend to act in ways that are not necessarily appropriate. But we don't know that that's what's happening. That's why I wanted you guys to really have a healthy, understanding relationship with your anger. So when you don't express what you're feeling, but you just people just experiencing your anger, that's not fair to you. And this is something that I'm really passionate about, because when I first started counseling, I remember watching my supervisor dealing with these cases that we are beyond normal. People be really angry and storming out of the office. I'm like, how do you deal with that? And I'll never forget one of the things that she told me was that to the degree that person gets upset is to the degree that they get angry. And that really, really helped me to not be afraid of those clients, because as a new person in counseling, you don't want to deal with angry clients because you personalize it thinking that you're a bad therapist, but sometimes it's not always the case. So you want to be mindful of, especially when your emotions are not, when your needs, emotional needs are not being met, what are the fast reactions? That is where you find that this your anger is trying to communicate an emotional need for attachment or security in the relationship. Now, a lot of us, we pick up long habits from our relatives, you know. So when we're children, like again, your parents scream at each other because they are angry, then you learn that when you get angry, that's what you do. When you get upset, oh, we never got angry. But some of us grew up in homes where anger was not necessarily a thing that was like that was discussed. So some of you tend to believe that you don't get angry because you never grew up in anger, in homes that anger was given room to be able to express. And so if you look into your life and see how you express anger, try to see that, notice if there is any similarities between how you and your family members dealt with anger, you know, so you can identify some of the strengths and weaknesses in dealing with anger, you know, because we all experience it. It's a very normal emotion. And I think one of the things I like about anger is that it's that emotion that creates change. It provokes change to happen because it insists that these things cannot continue to go on as they are. Things have to change. You'll be very surprised at how many things have changed, like laws have changed, our relationships have changed because someone got angry. Because you also don't want to be in a relationship with someone who makes you believe that everything is okay, because by default, you don't grow and you think that everything is fine, not because it is, it's just that someone doesn't even connect with that. And so it's very completely normal for all of us to experience anger, to have the healthy limits, knowing where those limits are, especially when people overstep them. Now, sometimes people express their anger through their words and their actions in their art and so many other ways. You know, when you're working, especially with children, children can kind of communicate their anger sometimes by drawing, because depending on their little temperaments, they may not be able to be quick with words as well as uh, the logic to explain everything that happened. So they are able to draw things like that. And even in adulthood, there are people who can use like drawings or art as a way of expressing their anger. So they find that they are able to describe their emotions in an image than them talking about it. So if you think about a situation that can influence how you feel about it, you know, for example, if you think that someone has it out for you, you'll probably see their actions of negative light or negative emotions like anger. Not that anger is I hate to say negative emotions because I feel like every emotion has a purpose as to why it's happening. You know, think about how the way you think has affected your emotions, especially anger. You know, many times, especially when we're using cognitive behavioral therapy, we are trying to change behavior by trying to change the way we think about circumstances or things. But if you don't tame your thoughts, you're going to find that some people have a repetitive cycle of anger because they are feeding the same ways of interpretation. So if you don't challenge your thoughts where you can get a hold of your mind, you're going to be stuck with anger, not because it's real, it's just that your interpretation is always taking you into that emotion. So, what does it look for someone to really deal with anger, to manage anger in a bit, in a healthy way? Because a lot of people trying to get away from it. So many people have told me, is there a way I can just get rid of not being angry? And I wish that was something that was attainable, but at the same time, it's not necessarily realistic. You need to have an understanding of what you do when you get angry, number one, so that you develop a healthy relationship with anger. It's a good emotion. Number one, don't judge it, don't criticize it, don't shame it. Embrace it like it's a normal part of being human, especially when your limits are being pushed past. That you can see what your own limitations are. For people who don't know how to draw boundaries, anger helps you to develop boundaries. For people who don't know how to express themselves, anger tries to tell you what is going on that you need so that you can articulate it with your words. So, first of all, I want to encourage you to understand what you do when you get angry. No, don't judge it. Don't judge it, don't shame it, don't criticize it. Acknowledge it and embrace it as a normal part of being human. Number two, then identify what you do when you do get angry. Number three, then try to understand the need, the emotional need your anger is trying to communicate so you can feel differently so that that need can be made. So if you don't feel understood or you feel like someone is criticizing you, you feel like someone is putting words in your mouth, whatever that emotion, that situation may be, these are the only topics that are easily coming up on top of my head. Give yourself permission to ask what you would need for you not to feel that way. So I will give you that understanding of what that need is so that you can meet that. And so when you come into classroom, people with skills to cope with it. Now, if you integrate spirituality into this topic, what does that look like? For some of you that read the Bible, it says in Ephesians 4, do not let the sun go down on your wrath, meaning that every day try to do a self check inventory, self examination to make sure that you're not angry, you're not going to bed with anger in your heart. Many times, what we don't realize that spiritually, we open doors to a lot of other problems, right? So if you're allowing anger into your heart, you're not creating space for your love to keep on growing. Now, physiologically, the way the brain is designed, the lower part of the brain keeps your organs safe. So when you find yourself into a place of fight or flight, where your reaction is fight and you're in anger sometimes, your reasoning is turned off because your mind is not able to have complex reasoning when you're not feeling safe. So this is why we have to address anger because there is no way we can grow if we are consistently stuck in the lower parts of our brain that is just supposed to help us to survive, but we are not growing in our cognitive, we are not growing in our emotional intelligence because we are constantly stuck. That's why so many people can stay there thinking that I just don't want to be angry, but what you're missing is that you're just stuck there. And when you're stuck there, years are going by, you're losing relationships. How many wars are we going through in this world just because someone got angry and they feel like this is something that they need to attain, you know? And so this is not something that you should take lightly. So you should really engage it. So spiritually, you have permission to be upset, to be angry, but you don't have to allow it to fester because it becomes something else. There is a proverb that says that do not play with the ears of an angry dog. Why? Because it will bite you. So when you're dealing with people, stay away from people who are angry. Those are proverbs. Those are the wisdom. That's some of the wisdom in the book of Proverbs that engages us that when you're angry and you're not able to take care of it or to manage your anger, people are advised to stay away from you because you're going to lead them into paths where they are going to do things that they probably never appreciated to do just because you're not taming yourself. So if you love people enough, be in healthy relationship with your anger so that you become a healthy person for them to come to you, and then you go into them also that anger is not judged in a negative way. Anger is not judged as a bad guy, but as a messenger that is trying to communicate a message to you. So for some of you out there, if you're in a relationship or you're in at a job situation, if you're in a family situation, and you feel trapped in your anger and you don't know how to navigate out of it, number one, first of all, identify if you are okay with it, and also try to see what the emotional needs with the intention and find a way to articulate it to your friend, to whoever whoever the person is in that situation, so that their discussions and needs can be met. So thank you. Subscribe, like, forward it to a friend, and if you need help navigating your anger, don't hesitate to reach out to us at forerunnercounseling.com, and we can have a personalized relationship with your anger. So thank you so much for watching.